at least to parts of what we're both doing. Where we were in agreement on stuff, the market finally moved. I just want to remind you that, as I said the first day when we were together, if there's only one thing, though, that you take out of the work that I've been presenting, or one place you want to start or one place you want to finish, it's the symmetry stuff. The 100% projections of prior corrective swings. Because this shows you the rhythm of the trend. Bless you. Anything happening on the pound?
Oh, yeah.
Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, okay, we took out that resistance finally. Yeah, let's check out both time frames here. And look at that, the 1272 target. That was that overlap I was talking about before, wasn't it? We cleared the 786, and here was where our earlier, just like we had the earlier long fail on the Canadian. Let me see what I'm doing. Now we had that earlier short fail, or just make a minimal profit. That was here. And remember I said that was a decent short, everything lined up, but it was obviously you're getting the message to get out very quickly. And then you broke that minus 100 line, meaning it was time to look for longs. It jittered around. You could have taken a long really anywhere in here based on CCI. And you're stopped. I mean, you would have not really taken much heat at all. I didn't have symmetry there, though. I would have had symmetry looking at this. Again, the program would update automatically, so I'm not going to even bother putting it in. But notice, as soon as you took out the high here, for instance, you have high to low projected from new high. That would have landed right about here. And even earlier, high to low projected from new high. We would have had retracements to reinforce it. Took off right there. You even had a 50-14 if you hadn't taken an entry until there. And look what happened. I haven't touched this computer. I haven't touched this computer in what, an hour or so? Or longer? That's the target I had in there earlier. 1272 on the 3-minute, and it overlapped the 1618 on the 15-minute swing. And that is where it went. And that's why it's a good idea to pay attention to this stuff, because, as I said, even if you didn't have those lines on your charts, that's where the market went. If you didn't know about it, it's going to happen anyway. So now that you know about it, you know where you can see, you know where you can look to see there might be a logical termination of a move or even a pullback. So that's pretty cool. What do you want to say about this one?
Well, it followed exactly what the Canadian dollar did. The MKS line holded the price. We were getting a little triangle here, and then it broke out of it. It's easy to talk about it right now. We were not watching the chart, so it's hard for me to tell you, well, that was a buy entry. If we were at this point, maybe we would not be thinking buy, but we definitely holded the support right here. Not much else. I would still consider this as no trade for me, because there is still no clear direction. And I am looking at the 4-hour chart. We are still holding the resistance on that chart. We are still having hard time getting above it. So we may actually get to this point again and reverse again. But until we get out of this huge consolidation that we have on the higher time frames, it's going to be very choppy, and we can go just for those few pips trades.
Okay. Speaking of higher time frame, it reminded me, what was the first chart we looked at this morning was the pound daily. So let's see how we're doing. Okay. Well, you said choppy, right? And consolidation. Here's that first chart we set up this morning. You see? We are now, actually those targets I had on the 3 and the 15-minute look like they're pretty close to our resistance cluster. So that, we had a kind of narrow day, but that is why those targets were even more important, and that's what we're faced with now. We tested yesterday morning, we were up against the daily support of that 2-step. If this is going to play out, and this stuff breaks, then you're good to go for up to here. But the point is, this morning, the first thing we did was we defined where our daily resistance was. So you can tell immediately that even though we got nice long triggers, yeah, there's a good chance that this won't go higher. If it does, I mean, eventually it will. It is going to break the daily resistance if it's going to go up. There's no two ways about that. But what we need at this point would be a multiple time frame trigger. This symmetry followed us all the way up from an earlier low. an earlier pullback. I mean, that's one of the things the program can do, is it just keeps updating and updating. So what I would want to see if I were to think about that daily resistance breaking would be a multiple time frame trigger, like a 100-line bounce here. This would have to pull back a little bit first. If I'm out at that, I took that target out, but there's a target here too. If I took, if we want to beat these targets and beat the daily resistance, which I guess would be up around here, because that was the high. When was that? Yep. We're going to have a lot of oomph to do it, so that would be a multiple time frame trigger. And I'm not throwing a whole bunch of new rules at you. I'm just reiterating, just like breaking a triangle or being up against a major set of targets, the next trade, you want to see a really strong entry trigger, which for me is multiple time frame entry, or you want to wait for the resistance to break and then take the next entry. It's that simple. It's like no trade zones. You know, you either want to see that someone really put their foot on the gas here, or you want to wait until this wall is broken through and then take the next trade. No, it's not. It went through by a pip or so, but let's see. High was 88.60, that's 58, I need a 3 pip break. And besides I'm really talking about that as an extension of the daily resistance, which is here and starts at, okay, our high was 88.83 and the daily resistance starts, okay, 88.75. The symmetry resistance is at 89.08. So just to see if something interesting happened over there, I'm going to pop over to the Russell. And it finally had some kind of trade, but that's really been a slow market today. We finally broke the support there, so we're definitely looking to the short side there. Same principles. Oh, I had, this is interesting. It looks like a timing factor. No, did not hold. This has not been a good couple of days for timing, and I'll tell you, when I trade myself or work in a chat room, there are times when there can be 2 or 3 or even 4, rarely 4, but 2 or 3 days in a row where whatever you're trading has no timing confluences, especially when you are just coming up against major support or major resistance. And considering what's been happening with some of these pairs and also with the stock index stuff, we just came down off that major slam on the stock index stuff, so it's in a consolidation zone where, I mean, this might look like a lot of motion for you on the Russell, but if you scroll back, you're going to see that it's really not much compared to, you know, where we came down from. So right now we're jiggering back and forth a little bit, and until we get some directionality, timing is not going to help that much. And that's why I haven't been able to give you the best examples of that the past couple of days. And we'll probably get into that more when we're in the chat room together. Is there anything more in the currencies you want to mention at this point? Okay.
Well, the yen is going down, but it is still holding to that support that we established last night, or sometimes during the last night, and we have to wait and see whether we can break it. If we can break it, then we are on the way for those 400 pips. If it is going to bounce, and if we are going to get cycle low on the 4-hour chart or higher time frame, then we will probably reverse and go up. So this is something that I would be watching for right now if I were holding short position on that currency pair. And on other stuff, no, there is really nothing happening. Everything else seems to be doing something similar to what Canadian dollar is doing or the British pound. They either go up a little bit or go down a little bit.
Okay, well, I guess after all the money we made yesterday, everyone's entitled to a little rest. The yen, you'll notice, I mean, that low that's being tested is also right against the daily support that we had set up yesterday and this morning. So that's significant that it has to break through that. The 15-minute is not particularly exciting to me. It's really in a wedge. The only thing here is that we do have the break of the -100 line really for the first time. See, when the CCI is bouncing back and forth inside the 100 lines, I was talking to you about this, I think, earlier, Fred, about CHOP. This is telling you when this keeps going and it's extended and extended, it's telling you that you're really in a tight range and you want to see a break of the 100 line. So this is telling us that we have some downside momentum. One of the reasons why CCI might trigger for me occasionally a little sooner than Monika's trigger is because while it's not a leading indicator, I'm getting a new low on the CCI, essentially. It's not a new low compared to here, but I'm getting a break of support on it because it does calculate its position based upon the median, the average within each bar. So it's not just telling me based on the close of each bar that there's downward momentum. It's telling me, it's like I said the other day, it's like reading a candle. It's telling you that each bar is also showing downward momentum inside the bar. So that's definitely leaning me towards the short side. But that daily support is really scary. I would need, just like the other stuff is against daily resistance, on this, where's my 3-minute? I need a multiple time frame trigger before I could short it. And it really, based on the chart pattern on the daily, it would be nice to think of this as a pullback within the context of a downtrend. But I don't really have any resistance I can put here to tell me that it's a downtrend. It could just as easily be the beginning of a rally. So I have to respect that support. And if it's going to break, again, I either need a multiple time frame trigger. If I can, let me see what the 3 is doing. Yeah, well, I'm not going to get a trigger now. There was a trigger here, if that had broken already. No, I did not have a trigger. The trigger now would have to be a bit more of a pullback, a bounce, and a minus 100 line bounce here, with the turbo going up and going back down, and then some sort of a shorter term trigger like a 50-14 short. Need a multiple time frame trigger to attack that daily support. Okay, any questions about anything right now that I can, I guess, I know we're not really winding up for the day, but people seem to be enjoying talking with each other and talking with us individually, so I don't want to interfere with that, but I don't want to miss out on showing everyone examples of any questions about what symmetry is or where to get it or the retracements, how to do it, anything right now that comes to mind. And that, sorry? Take a look at the crossword puzzle. Oh, the Russell. Hey, you know. Me? No. Deaf, maybe. Yeah, the Russell's boring. The Russell is really boring today, this range. What we can do here on the 3-minute, when we did break 15-minute support, this is not a two-step from the look of it because this middle piece doesn't look like it came back up to 618. We can test for that. See, it updated itself just now, but it only really just broke 50%. Return back upwards, so that's not a two-step. What we can do here, though, is see if we have any other 15-minute support. I'm going to take my expansion tool, and we can take the swing into the low here. Okay, so that gives us a little. This already is still $300 between here and support. So if we had a short trigger, it would be doable. Not thrilling. As long as you guys understand the concept of what I'm doing here. I'm just assuming an uptrend, which we don't even have to assume at this point because we have a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. Taking corrective moves. Now also we have resistance, obviously, because we have a swing into this high, corrective swing, low to high, projected from the new low. Now let me just show you something. The Russell, this is not a 24-hour chart. This is day session only. So if you're ever trading something where you want to focus on the day session, because I don't suggest, like in the stock index futures, for the Fibonacci work, don't use a 24-hour chart. You want to use a day-only session chart, especially with the timing work, because the timing work, the overnight market is like a totally different animal. And you don't want those cycles to affect what you're seeing during the day. So let me just show you one thing here, something I see people doing a lot. You see how we took out this low? Now, you might ask me, why don't I take low to high projected from new low for symmetry resistance? Because this isn't a swing. This is not a swing. This low is the continuation of whatever was happening overnight. The only swing I can use here would be if this low were violated, low to high, projected from new low. This would only be a low if it had actually opened here and went down, defined a low, and then pulled back up. This is opening in outer space. There's nothing telling me that's actually a pivot. Whereas here, we have a defined low, so it came down to a low, went up to a high, and went down. So here we have a defined swing, low pivot, high pivot. Here we have, it's just there in outer space. So you can't use that. And if you did, it just is meaningless. It just, wouldn't hold. So what this is telling us, just using the symmetry alone, is that we're range bound here. We have resistance on one side, we have support on the other. We have enough room, though, that a small trade might be worth it if we can get some reason to make a small trade. Even CCI here is not that wonderfully encouraging. It's just sort of drifting under the 100 line. This is tentative short territory as long as it's aiming downward. Or a long trigger here, a long indication here on the 15-minute would be the 14 obviously crossing back upward and taking out the resistance symmetry. Everyone see that? Because if we break the resistance symmetry, we're invalidating the idea of this downtrend, which is what we'd want to do if we took a long. The 14 is down below the 100 line. That popping back above the 100 line is also going to tell us we have upwards momentum. If that were to happen, I'm going to use my retracement tool, go high to low, and just erase some minor stuff here. We can see that we have a little resistance area. Now remember what I said yesterday, I would think of this more as the possibility of being strong and holding and reversing downward if the symmetry were overlapping the 618 or 786. It's not, it's at the 50%. So if this breaks, it could be a very good trade upwards. We'd have to watch the 786, and again, from the same swing, same tool, we have our targets to the upside. So we can pop down to the 3-minute, and the 3-minute really isn't telling us anything different. The 3-minute, the same swings are in play. We could take the low to the high, project from the low, and it's the same information as what we have here. The only other thing we could do is take smaller swings too. High to low, low to high from new low, and as we see those breaking, it can be a little advance notice that we might get the major break on the 15-minute. See? Have a smaller swing visible. I wouldn't take this trade if this breaks and I had a trigger only here. I wouldn't take that trade because it's going to bring us right into the 15-minute resistance. I want to see the 725 break, and I'll need that to get my 50-14 on the 15-minute. You see, the 14 has to pop back above for this chart to be long, and we'd have a 50-34 long on the 3-minute. See, this is not saying long right now. And this is barely saying short. For me to really talk about the triggers there, I'd have to look at the time frames I use for the Russell, but this is actually looking more like it wants to trigger short. If so, we would get probably a micro target, last low to high, and get these guys out of the way. Okay. It's pretty choppy. It doesn't, I'd take a short here. If the turbo crosses down below, the 6 period crosses down below the 0 line, and we break the minus 100 line here. Because I'm concerned that this might just pop right back off here. If this breaks, if the turbo goes down below, that's going to break the minus 100 line, and you can short, but it's such a shallow pullback that your target's only like a point. So basically all you're looking forward to is a scalp. And that's it for the Russell. That's what I see at the moment. And that's how I do it, basically all day. Anything else at the moment? Would you all like me to be quiet now? What? We have an auctioneer at the moment. Okie doke. Yeah, I'm sorry it wasn't ultra exciting so far today, but
On that, excuse me, on the yen, what do you think a reversal point is established potential value? I know we have a support area right now, but for the reverse courses, what are your projections on that?
Okay, maybe I'll turn this back on. Okay, I was just asking about the potential for reversal on the yen. What would be the target, you mean? What would?
In your projections,
Okay.
a potential downside, I know it's supported right now.
Okay, that's a good. Back to the daily first. All right. Well, I'd like to see this minus 100 line hold. In other words, if this breaks to the downside, it's really reaffirming a short. The 14 has to definitely go back above 0. This is in tentative long territory because we've beaten the minus 100 line here. So this is telling me, the daily is telling me it's okay to go either way, really. I'd have to take this down to a 15-minute. And the 15-minute is still looking short. I'd want to see this break above the minus 100 line, and let's check out resistance, Fibonacci speaking. See, we have some resistance right there. We have that low, I think, is lower, so I can't use it. 06. It's equal. Yeah, there's really very little to do here. This is so range bound. You could even just a break of the 1122 with a long trigger. 15-minute, ideally, what I'd like to see would be the 50 crossing back above 0. If you can get the price above the 34 EMA, which is just right on the other side of the symmetry, if that symmetry breaks, it's going to kind of ruin the idea of this being a downtrend. So if we cross above the 34 EMA and the 50 CCI crosses back above the 0 line, that either has to be one sudden move or a little gradual thing over the next few hours. That would tell us that we're really respecting the daily support. And by that time, the daily CCI would also be heading upwards more.
Whichever direction it breaks, it looks like it's going to be a decent little.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. But it's so poised. I can't even do more symmetry here because we have a little gradual pattern of higher highs and higher lows. So I can't take this low to high and project from here because this is in the way. So, I mean, I guess I could project from that one. Let's see. Not really helping. It's very, very right at the edge of going either way. Yes? 15-minute Russell, yeah. It's voted for down.
Yeah, the 100% projection.
Which,
19 point.
yes. There you go. Okay? Let's swing into the low. And yeah, so that was the short I was talking about. As a matter of fact, the sim updated already. We took out the minus 100 line, so we would have been in right around here. We'd only be up about 6 ticks by now, $60 on a $200 stop. I'm not thrilled, Well, 6 ticks times 2, $120 versus, so yeah, the target is so close. But that, it did trigger. Got the turbo hook, broke the minus 100 line. This didn't give us any trouble. And there's no other target I can really do, though, because these swings are so raggedy. I could do a 15-minute target. Let's see, 15-minute target. It's like such a small swing for 15 minutes. See, we're already at the 15-minute 1272. Irving, see that? We're already at the 15-minute initial target. So, like I said, that's not an exciting trade. You'd have to start looking right now to get out. So that's what I was saying about if you see a target on whatever you're trading, if you see a target that's close enough that the risk reward isn't there, don't take the trade.
And also, I noticed the support, symmetry support on May. Is that correct?
Let's see. I think there is, yeah. Symmetry support on this is actually resistance that broke. What contract are you using? Are you using the continuous or?
No, it's just
Okay. Let me just take a look. I'm sorry? Yeah, let me take a look at your thing for a second. Because I'm...
In phase 4, closes underline. Have you also got a close above the line in phase 4?
Yeah. Yeah, you can use that.